So what does authenticity mean for different generations, and how does social media influence that? If we take a look at all the different generations, from baby boomers, from Gen X to millennials, Gen Z, you'll see that each group has a unique experience that shapes their views on authenticity and their social media usage. So let's deep dive and see what we can figure out about each generation and how social media impacts them and how they use it. Hi! My name is Jaden, and I make videos on culture, media, whatever's going on in the world, something I feel like yapping about. And today is actually a requested video from Festival Kyrie. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but they requested that I do a video kind of exploring different generations and how social media impacts them and all that jazz. So I'm here today to do that. So let's break it down into each of the generations, starting from baby boomers all the way to Gen Z. Me personally, I am Gen Z. I'm 23 years old, and yeah, I did grow up with some millennial siblings, so I was experienced in like around the 90s shows like Static Shock and all that fun stuff, and like their weird slang, but I definitely am way more Gen Z than millennial, and my older siblings are always confused when I'm talking and like whenever I'm saying stuff or like anything in general, and they're like, what is wrong with you? So yeah, it's kind of fun to explore. I also have a very large family, so I do have quite a few generations worth of people that I could get feedback from, and I know like their experiences and their takes on these types of things. So I think it'll be fun to break it down. Starting off with the good old baby boomers, or as we like to call them, the boomers, the old people. Unless you're a boomer, I am very sorry for calling you old, but you were born between 1946 and 1964, which is wild. My dad was born in 1963, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. Don't quote me on that, but I know he's a boomer. So, what is authenticity to boomers and all that? They are very based on like legitimate, like face-to-face personal connections. They like storytelling, of course. My dad's a big yapper. Like anytime you're talking to anyone who's like in their 60s, I'm sure you've heard, like they'll just like keep on going on and on about like stories and their life and whatever, which I think is actually kind of cute, not gonna lie. They're also questionable in some ways, but I'm not gonna get into that. Let's just say that they're very set in their own ways, and they weren't as educated on like social problems as we are today, which is why you'll notice with a lot of older folks, they might come across as like kind of rude, kind of offensive, and it's technically not their fault because that is the way they were raised. They didn't have social media or any like connections outside of the people they physically and like face to face knew. And social media wise, the ones that do have social media at least are usually on like Facebook. Typically though, I don't know many boomers that are really on social media, and the ones that I have come across, they'll use like Facebook or they'll just email. And yeah, that's kind of the basic breakdown for them boomers. Next up, we have Gen X. I don't know much about Gen X. I feel like their social media presence honestly is very minuscule. Although I have seen a lot of TikToks of like Gen X people like being angry with like millennials and Gen Z. Like they got beef with everyone for some reason, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because they're the quote unquote like forgotten generation, I guess. I do know that they use like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, I think? That sounds right. Similar to the baby boomers though, they grew up in an era before technology was really like a thing and before social media was like really popping off. So they still value more like personal, like face-to-face kind of connections, and typically the only time they really use social media is to message people or rant about something on Twitter, or the odd ones you find on TikTok ranting about the younger generations. Yeah, I think one of my brothers is a Gen Xer, and he is not very social media savvy. And he does have like, he's like kind of an angry guy, so it must be Gen X then. The next one is millennials. They grew up like right when social media was becoming a thing, and they do use it a lot. Like you'll probably find them on all the platforms, honestly. And they are very like forcefully authentic and really force their humor. Like, have you ever heard the terms like millennial humor and stuff like that? Um, they definitely really, really, really love to share their lives and like what's going on. They're always posting photos of like where they are, their food, their friends, memes that they find funny. A lot of my siblings are millennials, and I do judge what they post. Not gonna lie. But I do respect that they are trying to be authentic and like they're not so like they're not trying to like manufacture what they're posting. They do seem to be like pretty comfortable with who they are and they're not really afraid to like talk about stuff, which is kind of cool. They gotta chill with some of those memes, okay? Gen Z, that's me. Oh, that kind of rhymed. I like that. Gen Z, that's me. This is probably cringy actually. Anyways, Gen Z. Gen Z grew up definitely with social media. Gen Z starts from 1997 up until 2012 when the world was supposedly ending. Yeah. So the younger Gen Z kids, they weren't like Gen Alpha. They definitely didn't grow up on their phones. But I do know for a fact that my generation, we did have access to like computers and iPods and MP3 players and stuff, like during the tween years. My dad does work with technology and computers, so I did have a computer since I was like 5 or 6 years old, I think. And I was homeschooled, so me and all my siblings did have our own like personal computers and stuff to actually like do our schoolwork. I know it's not like that with everyone. I know a lot of people that were born in my generation that didn't actually start using computers or any of that until like their early teens or like late preteen era. I definitely know my situation is a little bit more different because, you know, my dad's like a computer guy, so we had a lot of computers. But yeah, Gen Z definitely uses a lot of social media for speaking up about like political issues. That's a really big one. They don't really care for like influencer culture and like they will call out inauthenticity, which is why you see so many posts about the Gen Z people like hating on millennials because of their like quote unquote fake relatable content or if something just comes across as cringe. They definitely use social media more so as a way to speak up and raise awareness, which I really do respect and I love that. They typically on like TikTok and Instagram. Research I read said they're also on Snapchat, but honestly, I don't know anyone that uses Snapchat. Like, it was popular maybe when I was like 12, back in like 2011. Wait, 2011? 2010? Something like that. In like 2011, 2012-ish. That's when Snapchat was kind of in its era, and everyone I know literally doesn't use it, so I don't trust whatever article I was reading. I'm going off of like my experience of people I know. No one uses Snapchat. And if they do, they're most likely F-boys, so I have a little list of the key differences in social media influence, so I'm going to be looking down at my laptop to read these, so my apologies. So, engagement. Boomers engage more with family and nostalgic-based content, so you know, you'll see like boomers like post photos of like their families and I actually have a couple like boomers on like my Facebook personally, and I'll like see them having conversations in like the comments, and it's really funny, but also like kind of really cute. Gen X balances personal sharing with critical engagement, so they kind of have like a balance where it's like they don't want to post too much online, but then it's also like they're not afraid to be like critical, I guess. Is that what it means? I'm not entirely sure. Millennials, they seek community and connection, often shared through experiences. Hence why you see a lot of millennials posting about like where they are, who their friends are, always tagging people, always tagging everything. And then Gen Z favors quick, impactful content that aligns with their values and beliefs, which is when you start to see like politically stuff posted. Like a lot of Gen Z people are posting about like elections, and then they're posting about like any kind of like ongoing issue that is currently happening in the world. And yeah, I didn't put Gen Alpha on this list because they are very young, but they are definitely using social media to an extreme. They are the first generation that grew up literally with an iPad in their hands when they're like 6 months old. That's how they got titled the iPad kids. That's why so many of them, you see them on TikTok, you see them buying into all these trends and doing like a lot of consumerism. I don't want to get too much into Gen Alpha just because they are still really young. We haven't really like seen them develop all the way. So, yeah, that's where I want to leave that. So the perception of authenticity for boomers is that they see authenticity in like the more traditional way. They want the real life connections. They want to see people. They want to yap to you for hours. They really take like face-to-face connections at heart, which I feel like is something that's definitely gotten forgotten throughout the generations, is that you'll mainly notice like millennials and below, so like millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, they're usually on social media. They'll message people on like Instagram, or they'll just send a bunch of reels to each other. I'm guilty of that. And like they don't really have like time or energy to actually hang out with people face to face. I definitely excuse me. I definitely feel like that has something to do with the economy though, and working, and how most people need to work several jobs in order to have a roof above their heads. And then the older generations like Gen X and the baby boomers, they don't really have to worry so much about that. So like they'll use social media, maybe just like catch up with a friend, and then they'll typically go out somewhere, and because they have the free time and they have the money to actually be able to do these things, and then they probably have a little bit more energy because they've already worked, they've probably retired, some of them, or they've been in like a stable career for so many years that it's not really a problem for them to take any time off and like live life with people. But like the millennials, to me, to like Gen Alpha and all that, it's definitely harder to even make time for like face-to-face connections. And that is a good thing about having social media, is that like you can still stay connected with the people that you care about. It's just harder to actually be able to not be on social media and see these people in person because, you know, the world is terrible. Gen X appreciates the authenticity with a touch of skepticism. So they are pretty skeptical about the kind of stuff that they see online. You know, that old saying, don't believe everything you read online. That's definitely like a Gen X kind of perspective, when it's like, you know, like a boomer might see like a post on Facebook and they're like, oh my gosh, aliens are invading us. And then like a Gen X person would be like, well, don't believe it. It's online. Like, where's the evidence? Millennials would probably just be like, haha, it's so funny, lol. And then Gen Z would be like, that's dumb. And Gen Alpha would be like, skibbity alpha. Yeah, so millennials value openness and the sharing of both success and failures. That is definitely something I see a lot, is like millennials will post about like their uh-oh moments, and then they'll also post about like their like, hee, I'm so silly and like quirky kind of moments. So yeah, you definitely see a lot of that. And then Gen Z, of course, they are very transparent. Like they demand transparency and they hold brands accountable for their actions, which I feel like I've said like 50,000 times. They will call people out. They are not afraid to speak up about problems, which I feel like is kind of like a good thing about like social media. Like I feel like the whole purpose of social media, and this comes from a Gen Z person's perspective, is to like speak up and like share like and engage with people, like find your people and like share like what's going on with them, and then like still like be your authentic self and like still like update your friends on like your life and whatever, but then like speak out about like issues that are going on, that people are more aware of them because social media spreads. So what are my thoughts on this? Social media definitely shows up differently depending on the generation you're in. Of course, it's not like you're not just going to be boxed in. I'm not saying that like every boomer is clueless and only goes on Facebook. Like, no. My dad is an example, who's a boomer. He is actually on all social media, including Snapchat, and he likes to send a funny video or photo every single day to like me and my siblings. He definitely uses it to keep up with us and, you know, keep up with the news, which is pretty good. And then like not all millennials are like cringe, whatever. I do see a big like variety of people nowadays like speaking up about certain things that are going on in the world. And like I do see that. Like I have noticed over the years a shift in social media in general. Because when I was younger, and like Instagram, an example, when it first came out, it was just kind of like oh, take a picture of like whatever you're eating or wherever you are, or like you and your friends just being dumb, put a goofy filter on it, call it a day. And then over the years, I've seen it become very manufactured, and that's when like influencers started to come up in, and everything was very like staged and like perfect. And then like even people that weren't influencers, just people like in my age range, people I knew personally, they would be staging their Instagram photos and trying to portray like this perfect image and this perfect life. And now, flash forward even more years into the future, I'm noticing people are being a little bit more authentic, and they are speaking out on some issues in the world. Honestly, I started noticing it a lot more when Black Lives Matter started to become a big thing. And I definitely feel like that did kind of shift social media in a bit of a way, just because people were more aware of like what was actually going on, like how horrible all this stuff is, and that like, you know, we need to speak up about this, and like we can't just ignore something like this when it's been in the news, and you need to share that with other people so that everyone's aware and people can actually like try to make good change with that. So yeah, also with COVID as well, a lot of people were spending more time on social media across all the generations. You know, like you'll see like a variety of generations on all platforms nowadays, all just kind of posting about whatever they feel like. I would definitely say though that like millennials and Gen Alpha rely the most on social media, and then like Gen X and boomers, they will use it, just not as frequent. I feel like they're more into like personal connections, which is still really good. And then with Gen Z people, I feel like yes, they're on social media a lot, but I feel like they're better at limiting their intake. Like I don't want to sound biased, but it's just because like the people I know in my generation that I'm friends with and stuff, we've all went on social media breaks. We've all like deleted all the apps for periods of time just to like be away from it. And then like if something is going on, we will speak out about it, you know? So with that being said, I guess I'm going to leave like an open-ended question here for you guys, and that's, let me know in the comments below how you use social media, what generation you're from, how you feel it's impacted you, and how you feel like you're perceived on it. I feel like that's kind of a cool question. Me personally, I mostly use Instagram to keep track of my outfits, so it's literally just like my little digital wardrobe. I don't really care if anyone likes what I'm wearing, because I just take pictures of the outfits I like. And then like when I'm using Instagram stories, it's just kind of for like quick updates. I'm an Instagram person. I don't really use anything else, honestly. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!